right after 1967, they drafted 40,000 black men off of the streets of Detroit. Whoa. 40,000 black men, unprecedented. I mean, you can look this up. 40,000 black men. And they told, and I was in that bunch. They told every one of us, every one of you are going to Vietnam as soon as you leave boot camp. I mean, and it was true. They told us you got one option, and that is to re-enlist, take another year. Now the plan was that to get us up off of the streets. Exactly. Plan was to gear that energy in another direction. 1968, by August, I was shipped to Germany, and to Karlsruhe, Germany. And here, because they didn't have the field artillery like that, primarily it was the 8th Army Division from NATO, and their armament was basically they had 60 tanks. And I was always good with my hands, and I learned about working on the tank. I got real good. Believe me, I was extremely good on repair. I mean, I go out, I pull them tanks out on the line, I'll be shooting off them tanks. I mean, really. I mean, I was having a ball, boy. I love shooting them tanks, you know. And I fire up all the ammo. But other than that, you know, other events that took place while I was in the Army, meeting certain brothers that were, what you would say, militant, and began to increase my reading skills. Because I must say that you talk about education in Detroit at that time when I came through, that was just really a joke. You know, they pushed us through school in the front door and out the back door. But when I got into the Army and I had a lot of time to read, and I began to read different books, you know, about different situations in America. And being out of America, it afforded myself, like I can imagine, afforded many black men that was in the military at that time, an opportunity to see where we came from a distance, and understand that it was a difference being made, because living in that environment is not as easy to see it, you know, living outside of it. You know, when we began to get the statistics of how many was killed in this city or that city, what have you, began to make another kind of impact, and it certainly made one on me. The Black Panthers, they had, it was very, very influential or within the military. The black soldiers, primarily because they were young, they were strong, they were fearless, and of course, this is what in the military we were taught, you know, and with the revelations of the different situations that were taking place in America, situation in California with Governor Ronald Reagan, and then in the South, different sit-ins, and sure you've seen the pictures of people being sicked upon by dogs and water hose shot on them. All of these things were readily available for us in the Army, and then certainly fueled our spirit to show that we're part of this, you know. And even more so than I can imagine those that were still like in my neighborhood, that as I said, in the neighborhood, you didn't have that focus, that wide focus as I did in the Army, you know, because the Army began to see it at a whole nother kind of level. And as I said, being influenced by them, you know, and it made sense that there was something wrong in the world, and it would not issue a race. And this was one of the primary points with the Panthers, is that it wasn't about race, because of course we made an alliance with the Brown Panthers, the Red Panthers, and the White Panthers, you know, and so it was like a coalition of people coming together. The spear began to really move on the brothers. I mean, intensify. And it got to a point that I had certain encounters with establishments, you know. First lieutenant, you know, I was scheduled for a leave. When I went to get it, you know, first sergeant told me, "Oh, young, you got guard duty." I said, "No, first sergeant." I said, "You don't know your business. I got leave." I said, "Guard duty, knock out no leave," you know. And I didn't know that this young little lieutenant, he had walked up behind me. The bandit put his hand on my shoulder, turned me around and said, "Told you, when you speak to your first sergeant, speak with respect." And when he said respect, it was like spray kind of came out of his mouth on my face. And I grabbed this bandit, you know, and slammed him on the chair, you know, before I really knew what I was doing, you know. I said, "Man." You know, and I sit down, you know, right away, and you know, and the guy, you know, I mean, the guy was messed up. I mean, he was trying to put himself together, and the first sergeant and all the other sergeants, they were there. They was like, "Oh, young." I said, "Oh." So I said, "Man, he shouldn't have spit in my face." You know, I'm trying to build a case right away. I said, "He spit in my face." You know, I said, "Y'all see it? He spit in my face." You know, so anyway, they said, "Come on, young, we got to go down to the CO," you know. So they take me, you know, I'm going on down to the CO, you know, and CO called me, and I told him what happened, you know. He said, "Oh, young," he said, "Yeah, I understand, I know." They just went outside for a second, that's the South, and he called them criminals in, they go in. He called me back in and said, "Young, we made a decision, we're gonna put you up for a general court martial." I got out of there, and that was my first AWOL to Copenhagen, Denmark.
What AWOL is, sir? Tell me you gotta do what AWOL is.
AWOL is absent without official leave. You know, they call it AWOL. You know, I mean, you left. You know, but at any rate, when I was there, you know, again, you know, there was a lot going on. A lot going on. Ran into some brothers that, you know, we was like, you know, I'm trying to survive. We trying to make a little hustle. We get a little stuff, and we go from Copenhagen, sneak back down into Germany, and fail to the soldiers, whatever, you know, and came up with this plan. I said, "Man, we're gonna really make it big. I'm gonna take something this back to America, you know, and really make it big." I mean, I was really out of my mind, you know. And so these brothers that we had met in Malmo, Sweden, now I'll get to that. They told us some stuff, and it was no good, you know. And the partners I was with, they was like, "Man, these Negroes told us some crap," and because they was always talking about revolution, you know. always talking about revolution, you know, and getting back to America and fighting the revolution, that. So my partner was saying, yeah, Negroes talking all that revolution crap. It ain't sold us some garbage and so on and so forth. So we confronted them. I said, man, why y'all do this? Y'all been talking to us about, you know, brother this, brother that, stole us this junk. And brother said, hey, now y'all told us, you told us your plans about taking this back to our people, said, you think that we're going to allow you to do that? We ain't studying you, you know. We ain't studying you. We ain't selling you, you know. That's what you got, you know. And, you know, I was like, man, these brothers are pretty bad, you know. And, but it made sense, you know. And from that, you know, I began to continue to listen to these brothers and consequently come to find out that these were brothers that had went AWOL from the army in Vietnam. Oh, and they had went AWOL and crossed over to North Vietnam. Whoa. And by way of North Vietnam, they went to China and they ended up through Russia. And from there, they ended up in Sweden. Sweden at that time was giving political asylum to anyone that was in opposition to the Vietnam War. And that's how they ended up there. And these were the brothers. And consequently, Bobby Fields had come to Stockholm, Sweden, and motivated these brothers, and they did something up in Stockholm, but it was real loose organized. And this is where I really got caught up. We consequently, over time, we formulated the Black Panther Party in Malmö, Sweden. Malmö, Sweden is like right across from Copenhagen. Okay. And primarily, most of the brothers would be located in Malmö, Sweden, because Copenhagen was like the Hollywood of Scandinavian countries, you know. Copenhagen, believe me, wow, you know. But that's where all the action was, you know. So you go over Copenhagen, it was just like a boat ride. And thing was that in the Army they had the CID. And CID, called the Criminal Investigating Division of the Army, they had authority, they had agreement with countries of Denmark that they could cross over into Denmark from Germany and kidnap you, like, and they would do this just like bounty hunters. They would kidnap brothers, take them back across the border in Germany, and then arrest them, you know, which was illegal. You know, so it was like, you know, you really had to be mindful of this, you know, that could happen. But that's the reason why the brothers stayed in Malmö, Sweden, because they couldn't come over into Sweden to do that. But at night, you know, different hours, you knew the time that you could jump over to Copenhagen and whatever. But from there, we actually formulated the chapter, the Black Panther Party in Malmö, Sweden. During that time, we actually organized in Heidelberg, Germany, the biggest protest. Heidelberg, Germany, we organized the biggest rally, black rally in the history of Germany. I know over 1,000 black U.S. soldiers, and believe me, it shook the world. And we were regimented at that time. We had the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party, and we just read from it, you know, and it was, you know, a thing about it's time for the racist pigs to face the wrath of the armed people. You know, that was the calling, you know. Right. And believe me, now, it was brothers, I'm telling you that, these brothers, some serious brothers, you know. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm saying this, you know, it wasn't no hype with them. I mean, they really let you know that they would go down with you. You know, it wasn't no fluff. You know, they was real. They were serious. They really wanted to get back into America because they thought that this was going to really come off. So.